welcome to the Making College Success a Reality for New York's Youth in Care webinar. This is the third webinar in a series of 5 webinars. Today's webinar is focused on providing advocates, parents, caretakers, students, child welfare professionals, and other stakeholders with an opportunity to get an overview of the content in the Making College Success guidebook. We're going to be highlighting key information and recommendations on how to use this tool in a way to support educational success for foster youth. My name is Jessica Maxwell. I'm a consultant working with Children's Aid to support the guide development, promotion, and advocacy. I've worked in child welfare advocacy and policy for over 10 years. I'm passionate about empowering young people with lived experience to take a seat at the table and contribute to decision-making on issues that impact them. I currently live in Los Angeles, and I work on educational issues involving system-impacted scholars. Joining me today are several presenters. First, I'd like to introduce Nicholas Vasquez. Nicholas is a junior at the University of Albany. Nick also serves as a youth advocate for the Fostering Youth Success Alliance, works at Apple, is an avid basketball player, and an all-around superstar. So we are grateful to have Nick. I also have today Sonia Gonzalez, who serves as the Executive Director of the College Bound and Support Programs for the New York City Administration for Children's Services in the Office of Family Permanency Services. Sonia manages several initiatives and continues to identify post-secondary resources to help improve educational outcomes for New York City foster youth. Sonia has over 15 years experience in college counseling, program implementation and management, and has been focused on improving access to education and closing the achievement gap for vulnerable youth. And last but certainly not least, we have Kathleen Brady stepping in. Kathleen is the Associate Executive Director of the Council of Family and Child Caring Agencies, more affectionately known as CAFCA. Kathleen is responsible for analyzing policy and developing positions related to child welfare, juvenile justice, as well as leading CAFCA's statewide budget and legislative advocacy efforts. Kathleen serves as a liaison to the state government entities for CAFCA members and coordinate activities for the New York State Coalition of 853 schools. Kathleen is also an active participant in FISA steering committee. And lastly, but Kathleen is passionate about collaborating with policymakers to develop and implement policy solutions that best support children and families in New York State and beyond. So I'm really excited about this all-star cast we have today. Before we get started, I'd like to just have a couple of acknowledgements. I'd really like to take a moment to acknowledge the many partners who have contributed to the development of the College Resource Success Guide, including staff from the Office of Higher Education at SCD, staff from OCFS, the Higher Education Services Corporation, the New York City Administration for Children's Services, CUNY, SUNY, and offices within CUNY and SUNY, including the EOP, ASAP program, and financial aid offices. Additionally, I'd like to appreciate the contributions from staff at Stony Brook University, the University of Albany, the Schuyler Center for Analysis and Advocacy, and the New York State Department of Health, and last, the Juvenile Law Center. I'd like to give a special acknowledgement and thank you to the students from foster care who bravely shared their stories and reflections about their real life experiences navigating their higher education. We encourage you to visit the College Success Resource Guide to read their personal stories and testimonials. The youth voices are really core to this guide. And lastly, we'd like to thank Children's Aid for making this work a priority. So I'm just going to review the agenda. So first, today we are going to jump into why we need to make college success a reality for New York's youth in foster care. We will have a student reflection and a story from Nicholas. Then we will move on to educational outcomes for foster youth in New York State and beyond, highlighting the key programs that have been established over the last 10 years to support foster youth educational outcomes. We will have a presentation from Sonia on New York City specific resources that support college attainment for foster youth. We will then move into community-based and campus support programs that help foster youth maintain and actually move towards college success. Lastly, we will highlight some important campus policies that ensure that students can retain their time in higher ed. Lastly, we will have a live question and answer. And as a few housekeeping rules, the chat function will not be utilized during this webinar. We ask that you place any questions that you may have in the Q&A box. So you can use the Q&A feature to ask any questions. We will be collecting the questions, and during the question and answer portion, we will respond to each of the questions. Everyone has been added into listen-only mode. Any of the resources that we mentioned during this webinar, including this presentation and the FAQs that come up during this presentation, will be uploaded to the College Success Resource Guide website post this webinar. So let's get started. So why do we need to make college success a reality for New York's foster youth? The number one reason for me is that education is a pathway out of poverty. There have been numerous studies and research that really shows that education is really an equalizer for many young people that may come from marginalized backgrounds. Foster youth deserve every opportunity to thrive, just as we would want our own children to thrive. When FISA launched 6 years ago, 21 states were supporting post-secondary education for foster youth, and New York was not one of them. Now I'd like to introduce Nicholas, who's going to share his personal story about navigating college and what that process was like for him to apply to college, get into college, and navigate it successfully. Nicholas, we need you to unmute yourself.
All right, y'all can hear me? Yes. First thing first, hi everybody, good afternoon. Hope you guys are all doing well on this lovely day. Well, I hope it's a lovely day for everybody. With that being said, I'll get right into it. So first and foremost, I like to highlight that coming into college is a struggle even before you get there, you know? It starts from young and it starts in high school. And I realized that because it wasn't easy to get here. And but I think it is important that everybody like me or in my position or similar has the opportunity. And that's one thing I would love. And that's one thing that's one reason why I really appreciate this organization, everything you guys have done. It is important that we have a lot of people on our side to back us up, because while being in foster care, we are taught to look out for ourselves at a young age, you know. It's a lot of things we keep ourselves from learning that we can't learn unless we reach out to other people and allow others to try and offer some type of support. And that kind of ties into exactly what happened with me. So coming into, well, let me say the road to college, the road to success, I like that term better. It was difficult for me at first, and it almost didn't seem realistic, honestly. I was working 35 hours plus at McDonald's, first as a regular employee, and then I moved up the ranks all the way to a manager by 18. And you know, being in school and working, it made me have to feel like I had to pick a side, and I chose to work, and school was difficult. But I mean, today I'm still here, and I have to give all that thanks to my college advisor. Her name was Ms. Chikarico. I feel like I should just put that out there. And my counselor, her name was Ms. Palmer. And those two really changed my life for the better. So pretty much they sat me down, and they're the ones that made me apply. I hadn't applied, and I wasn't planning on it, honestly. But they saw something in me. They literally told me, now you're going. There's no option that you're going. There's no reason why you can't do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't do it. So we're going to apply. And if all goes well, you're going to go. And just like that, straightforward, straight to the point, no sugarcoating. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And they pulled me out of class one day and sat me down, and we applied. And it was difficult at first because I didn't know what the heck I was looking at, honestly. But, you know, with some guidance and some assistance from them, they helped me point out a couple schools. They helped me get my fee waivers that I didn't even know I was entitled to. And pretty much we applied four SUNYs and 6 CUNYs. I used up every free application I could, and it was worth it. And now I'm in, and today they put me onto EOP. I forgot to highlight that. It was because of them that I'm in EOP right now. I am an EOP student, proud to be EOP, in case you guys haven't noticed. But yeah, and all right, so let me get to, but yeah, so they put me onto EOP, and they really solidified everything for me. They helped me do my application. They walked through everything with me. They helped me continue to make sure I got my acceptance to reach out to the schools. And then it was verification, and verification was a tough one. That was verification was not easy on me. I had to get so many different types of documents, and it was a struggle because things just wouldn't work at the times I would need them to. And like I would need a document by this time, and the court wouldn't be able to give it out till this time. So it's just, or I wouldn't be able to get a court date to go and even see the judge to get that paperwork till a week or months later. So you're like, everything was just on its own time, and it wasn't working out for me. But all long story short, with the help from my agency, in case you guys don't know, I was with Leak and Watts. They helped me out, and they helped me do my financial aid, and they helped me reach out to get every piece of paperwork I needed. And what I mean by paperwork, in case some of you guys don't, what I mean by paperwork is just verification for my income. I had to prove the way my situation was going. I was with my pops, but I was still in foster care. So it was just like, why am I in foster care? So it was a lot of stuff. They wanted me to prove that I was in foster care. They wanted me to prove that I was in foster care. They wanted me to prove that my father he wasn't my legal guardian at the moment. They wanted me to prove that the money that I was saying I didn't have, I really didn't have. So it was difficult. I literally had to go and speak to the director, and they had to talk to one of they had to go talk to the Legal Aid Society right there in the Bronx on 161st Street. And they signed the paperwork, and they pretty much just gave me that I am a legal foster youth. Currently, I don't have anything I'm awarded the state, and that was pretty much so I could get my financial aid packet as high as I can get it, honestly, my financial aid. And that's exactly what we did. But then by the end of that year, I got accepted to Albany, and it was one of the greatest things that happened through EOP. I applied, I got accepted to Albany. Because of my college advisor, they put me onto a scholarship, and because I got a scholarship, a full ride. So I was somebody who literally had nothing, and now I'm going to Albany on a full ride. And then from there, that's when it was just the college life. And I for the longest time, I had this idea that once I got to college, it was it, But then I realized that it's just another chapter, and life goes on. So college hit me hard, and that's when I had to go on with it. And I came to school, and right off the bat, I didn't have much to do for my first semester. I wasn't very involved. However, I did have a goal for my first semester. And my goal was to be an EOPSA, similar to what I did my EOP summer. You go there, you go for school for like a month, and we pretty much take you to class. We'll take you to teachers. We'll help you build your schedules, your financial aid. We'll take you around the campus, tours. We'll meet you. We'll interview. Not interview. Basically, get you to know every resource on campus, and just teach you little tricks about financial aid and FAFSA and what you have to do to keep on top of your work. And being EOP was great. And I got to, so pretty much I ended the first semester with 3.2, became an EOPSA, and I bodied that summer. I went hard. I went so hard because it was my director, and I love my EOP program. Miss Maritza is one of the best people I've ever met, and I really did it for her. And so I really worked, and I worked hard, man. I think I left the statement. I ended up with a lot of mentees, and right after that summer, that's when pretty much my college experience really took off for me. That's when I started to get really involved. After that, off rip, I became a RA. Then I became a TA. And then I was also part of Middle Earth, which is like a suicide hotline. And after that, I literally just I started taking off. I started my own organization, and this is how I ended up becoming the president of my own organization. In case any of you guys aren't familiar, we go by FLOW, Fostering Leaders of Our World. And it's one of my biggest accomplishments, something I'm very happy for. And I love the group of people that I want to say work with. I don't consider it like a job, but that I work with. And we all got foster care backgrounds, and it was something that made college a lot better for me. It made me feel a lot better being in college, knowing that, even though it's not many of us here, it's still a few of us, and we still have similar stories, and it's not like we're always alone.
Thank you.
So,
do you want to highlight a couple of the key ideas and things that you love about the College Resource Success Guide?
I would love to. So, my first initial thing for let me not say official, but initial thing, but the parts that I liked most about college, about the guidebook specifically, was one, the training of all the staff. The training of all the staff, just to put them on to what foster youth really goes through. I think that's a huge one, because I feel like we're all highly underestimated. Everybody underestimates what I think foster youth really is. I think a lot of people see it for just growing up without your parents. And the way I view it is way more than just that. It could be a number of different reasons why you end up in the system. And I feel like people underestimate that. And and that's why I feel like if teachers knew more about it, there would be moments, because I had a moment where one of my people I was in my organization, they had a bad experience with the teacher. And the teacher had said something out of pocket, out of line, and she didn't take it well. So that was just one major example of things that happened when we were in college. And I feel like something like that wouldn't have happened if foster youth was stressed more. And the other one was the liaison, every department liaison. And I feel like that was a huge one too, because there's so many times where we're trying to get in contact. Like a big example would be me reaching out financial aid. I have to talk to one person, and she deals with not just my group of people, but honestly, her specialty isn't my group. She deals with EOP and some regular students. And then because of us, they added us onto her workload, I guess you could say. And it was just like, it's overwhelming. And like, while I understand it's overwhelming for her, it does still get to me, because it's just like, I can't always be so nice, because I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm still the one not getting my checks in time. I'm the one not having money. I'm the one with all these verifications that I need to prove. So having a liaison, somebody I could just directly talk to, who knows my situation and every foster youth type situation, every foster youth resource around, I feel like that would make all the difference. And just having a general knowledge in foster youth overall would make more people aware. And that's pretty much kind of the goal on our campus, not just to have a liaison, but in the long run, we want to have, so we have like a LGBTQ resource center in our campus, and the whole LGBTQ community could just chill there and have fun and just be there. And in the long run, we want to have something like that too in our campus. We want to be able, if anybody has a foster youth background, or even if you don't, but you feel comfortable, but you honor and respect the foster youth and you want to get to know more, we would love to have a space like that for us. And that's the goal. And those are pretty much the two biggest points I would like to highlight. And if I could just say one more thing, being in college is hard, and it's not something that I was definitely prepared for at all. And I don't think many people can come in prepared. But I know that a lot of people wish they can, and I know a lot of people don't even know they can. But everybody should, and when they do, just come with the mentality of wanting to work hard and being open to every opportunity that comes their way, because I think that'll make all the difference. When people close themselves off to things, it holds them back from life. So just be open and don't be scared to be uncomfortable. I think that's the best advice I could honestly give. Like, it's going to be different, but in the life we've lived, I feel like we even haven't had much of a choice. So if we could choose to do one thing, choose to make the better life, and that starts with just being open to everything. And that would be it for me. Sorry, guys. I'm sweating on this side, if you guys haven't noticed. I'm drenched over here.
Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for sharing your story, just being really thoughtful about thinking through what that first year of your experience was like at UAlbany, and being willing to step up and be an advocate. And I think that we all got your message loud and clear, that we need liaisons, we need people who are educated about the foster youth experience, and that foster youth need a presence on college campuses. For everyone, all of the attendees on this webinar, Nicholas is currently at work, so we want to thank him for his time today, for jumping on, but he's not going to be able to stay for a live Q&A. But if there are additional questions for Nicholas, you can use the chat feature to ask those questions, and we will have Nicholas respond in writing. Thanks, Nick. Now we are going to move on to educational outcomes for America's foster youth. So as you can imagine, being in foster care challenges the educational stability of students in foster care from the time of their placement. Many young people, when they enter care, change schools upon entry. School instability increases with age. 34% of 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds in foster care have experienced at least 5 school changes. School changes are attributed to a number of factors, including challenges finding appropriate foster care placements or behavioral issues resulting from trauma. Federal and state policies have been implemented to minimize school changes, such as policies that encourage placements with family members or kin, placements in geographical regions close to the student's youth of origin, and other policies. Laws such as the Fostering Connections to Success Act and the Every Student Succeeds Act focus on increasing the role of education and permanency planning. It also expands foster youth educational rights to allow foster youth to remain in their school of origin at the time of foster care replacement, and requires schools to conduct a best interest determination before transferring the student to a new school. School changes especially impact older students and often lead to students not completing their high school diploma. Only 65 foster youth will complete their diploma by the age 21. This is due to a lack of credits and learning loss. Research estimates that each school change leads to approximately 4 to 6 months of learning loss. Data shows that only 3 to 11% of foster youth will attain a bachelor's degree. We believe that places like New York and California likely have higher rates, but unfortunately there is a lack of recent data and research that contributes to this. So how are we supporting the post-secondary educational success for foster youth? Nationally, 22 states often offer tuition-only waivers for foster youth. 3 states have statewide scholarship programs, such as the University of California Guardian Scholars Program, the Washington State Governor's Scholarship, and in New York City, the New Yorkers for Children NIC Scholars, formerly known as Guardian Scholars. That was weird. 3 states have fully funded academic support programs for students in community college, and 1 state has a supportive housing policy for youth in foster care, which is California, through a state law that prioritizes campus housing for foster youth. New York has made many strides in supporting students to attend college, including modifying the tuition assistance program to address legal issues that were penalizing foster youth to seeking financial access. There was a change made in 2014 that moved foster youth from the independent financial aid award schedule to the dependent financial aid award schedule. Within 1 year of implementation, foster youth were able to recoup over $700,000 in financial aid and had access to larger financial aid award amounts. In New York, we also have programs like the EOP program or Seed College Discovery Program, which support foster youth and allow students in those programs, all students, not only foster youth, access to up to 5 years of state financial aid. We encourage you to watch the Fostering Youth College Success Initiative webinar, which was the second webinar in this series that dives into specific state resources around foster youth attending college. Now I'd like to take you to the College Success Resource Guide itself. This resource guide has been established to support you all in supporting foster youth that are attending college. The resource guide can be found at www.fysa.org/college-success-guide. The resource guide has 6 chapters, and we encourage you to explore all the tools and information on this website after today's webinar. For now, I will do a live navigation of the resource guide and highlight the key tools that I think you all and today's audience will find most useful. So this is the College Success Resource Guide. As mentioned, there are 6 chapters in the guide. From my perspective, the first thing you all should look at when reviewing the guide are the student testimonials. Each chapter has a student testimonial where you'll learn about that student's experience in the resource guide. Some chapters have 2 testimonials, and the testimonials are directly tied to the information within that chapter. The next chapter that I think is important for this audience to get familiar with is chapter 3, which is maximizing financial aid for foster youth. So this chapter provides a bunch of resources around understanding the process and protocols around applying for, accepting financial aid, and maintaining financial aid. Specifically, I'd like to highlight a couple of the key tools in here that include a cost of attendance adjustment form, which allows students to request an increased cost of attendance for their college education. And it includes a chart that breaks down the difference between the Foster Youth College Success Initiative and the educational training voucher. Additionally, I'd like you all to get familiar with chapter 4, which is child welfare resources that support higher education for foster youth. There's a bit of background here that explains college room and board payments, other initiatives, but most importantly, it provides some tools and templates and links to the websites that you need in order to access the child welfare resources that support higher education. And lastly, I'd like to call your attention to chapter 6, which are the campus policy recommendations. The campus policy recommendations are really focused on highlighting recommendations that were developed by students, advocates, higher education professionals around how campuses can better support foster youth by adjusting some of their administrative policies on the campus. There are really great policies highlighted here, such as policies around housing, training, and ways to better support students. So we really encourage you all to get familiar with this. And as an advocate, really encourage you all to, if you are an advocate or a staff working on a higher education campus, we would encourage you all to get familiar with this and make a case for your campus to adopt some of these policies. So now I would like to introduce Sonia Gonzalez from ACS and Kathleen Brady-Stepien from Kafka, who are going to share more information about resources that support the post-secondary educational success for foster youth. And Sonia, before you get started, I'm just going to switch back to the PowerPoint. So. Okay, you can get started, Sonia. I'm just going to ask Griffin to unmute Sonia and Kathleen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today and inviting me to share on today's webinar. For statewide room and board payments, youth currently in foster care are eligible to receive child welfare funding to assist in covering some of the cost of room and board while attending college. There is no standard rate for students in New York State. Instead, payments are based on students' country of residence, type of foster care placement, New York State approved foster care rate for the Youth Child Welfare Agency, documentation from the IHE of the student's cost of room and board for each semester in which they are enrolled in college. Additional documentation may be needed for students required to live in off-campus housing. So this is for statewide. The next few slides that I will present are specific to New York City. And so in New York City, we, for the last 4 years, starting in 2016, we launched a program known to many as the Dorm Project, initially known as the Fostering College Success Initiative program. The Dorm Project is a partnership between CUNY Schools, New York City ACS, and the New York Foundling, which is a not-for-profit organization that works with children and families in child welfare. To be eligible for the program, students are usually between the ages of 16 and 24, and they're currently enrolled full-time in CUNY, in a CUNY college, and or are a current high school senior on track to applying to and being accepted to CUNY. Some of the supportive services students look forward to when they apply for the Dorm Project and get accepted is our year-round housing feature. And so we partner with CUNY, and right now we partner with 3 CUNY dorms in New York City. And so that's Queens College, the City College of New York, and the John Jay College, which has a campus at the New Yorker Hotel in Midtown Manhattan on 34th Street. And students who get accepted into the Dorm Project, they get assigned a dorm room, and they live on campus year round. Part of them living on campus year round is them getting a full meal plan. They also get connected to a full-time tutor through the New York Foundling program, as well as a college success coach. And the college success coach I view as the pilot of the program, because that person is assisting our students with navigating all of the resources that are available to them in college. And so when Nicholas was talking about having the advisor, that's really important to connect them to resources. That's what our college success coaches do. They're matched with students in the program, and that person helps guide our students and connects them to resources and opportunities at their college of attendance. You can move to the next slide. We also, in 2017, launched our stipend and exceptional payments program. And so I'll start with our Fostering College Success Stipend program, which is unique to New York City youth in foster care enrolled in college. It's a daily stipend to pay for essentials such as personal items, phone service, transportation, clothing, food, books, anything basically our students would need to purchase as college students. One part of it is our students work with their college success coaches, but more so work with their education specialists at their assigned foster care agency to assist them to learn more about financial literacy and gain skills in that area. So ACS has provided our agencies with a tool designed to help students organize and track their spending, not just as a form of our students to really use the stipends that they get on a weekly basis to begin to help them think about budgeting and managing their funds. The eligibility criteria for the stipend program is that the student has to be enrolled in college and living in a dorm on a full-time basis. You'll see my contact information there. That's our central contact information. And if you have any specific questions related specifically to the stipend or any of the resources that I've shared today that are New York City specific, please feel free to reach out to our central mailbox. We also have our continuation of care and support beyond age 21. We realize that services and support should not end at 21, especially if we want to enhance more of our youth going to college and being successful. So young adults that are still in college at age 21 may be eligible for assistance with our room and board until they reach age 23. Students who are in the continuation of care and support beyond age 21 program are also eligible for the stipend program as well, as long as they're enrolled in college full-time and they're also living on campus. Through the CCS 21 Plus program, I'll just say this last thing. Through the CCS 21 Plus program, students are also matched with a advisor, someone that checks in with them on a monthly basis. And that person will reach out to students via email, phone, to check in with them and also to assist with identifying additional resources and services as needed. We also partner with the New Yorkers for Children. So ACS and New Yorkers for Children partner to provide additional educational support programs and scholarship opportunities for youth who enroll in college. And so some of you may have heard of the Back to School Package program. It's a scholarship opportunity that provides laptops, school supplies, and Amazon gift card that could support with purchasing additional school supplies. The biggest scholarship, the Nick Scholars Program, which also is an academic advisement program, provides financial support, as well as that social, emotional support and guidance that our youth need. We also have our Bridge Scholars Program for youth seeking to further their education beyond undergraduate studies. And this is pretty great because many of our students, current students who have graduated from the dorm project, have actually applied to the Bridge Scholars Program because they want to go and get their master's and further their education. The Spirit Award is a financial scholarship intended to support students on their path to graduation. And so students would apply, and it is a little bit of a selective process, but great opportunity. And our Financial Empowerment Fund also is another scholarship opportunity. And so I will be providing a document one-pager that gives information on all of these, more information on every single one of these opportunities, as well as eligibility and the financial award that each of these scholarships provide.
Thank you, Sonia.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you. I'm Kathleen Brady-Stepien, Associate Executive Director at the Council of Family and Child Caring Agencies, or CAFCA. CAFCA is a statewide association which represents the child welfare organizations around New York State. And our provider agencies around the state have placed with them 90% of young people in New York State foster care system. There are some counties upstate, several counties upstate, that do what is called direct placements, which means that they directly oversee foster homes in their county. So that accounts for the remainder of young people in foster care and their placements. But most really are placed through our agencies. And what that means is that our staff working in our agencies are often the key contacts that represent part of the team that work with all of you to support our young people as they go off to college. And it's been my honor to be a part of the steering committee through my work at CAFCA in helping to establish and grow the Foster Youth College Success Initiative the past 6 years. So I'm going to walk through healthcare for our young people that either are currently in care or formerly in care. And I think I just want to start out by saying what it's important for all of us to keep in mind is that I've had the pleasure, as I'm sure many of you have, in meeting our young people that have accessed this program or that hope to access this program that are still in foster care in high school. And I think there's one theme that they share throughout the stories that many of them, such as Nick and others who are tremendous advocates, have shared with legislators, and that is the theme of potential barriers that pop up in their way as they are in college that represent unexpected challenges that they didn't anticipate going into college. And so what I want to throw out to all of you, if there's one takeaway that you have from my remarks here, is just to keep that in mind and to try to help prepare our young people in advance of their college journey by pointing out several of these resources to them that I'm going to talk about. And so healthcare for our young people is a potential barrier. And what I mean by barrier is just that there are unexpected, things that pop up that could represent unexpected expenses, right? And those can present a lot of anxiety for our young people. So I'm going to break down healthcare into two buckets, pretty simply, of coverage and of geography. As I'm sure many of you know, the Affordable Care Act included a provision that would permit our young people that were in foster care at age 18 or older and enrolled in Medicaid to be eligible to continue on Medicaid to age 26. And so our kids that are currently in foster care have categorical coverage with Medicaid due to their status as a foster youth. So for our students still in foster care, they would be on Medicaid or through a Medicaid managed care plan. Again, remember that Medicaid to 26, which I'll talk more about in just a second. And so what you'll see over here on the left side of the screen is this reminder about a waiver for the campus-based healthcare plans. And so because our young people have that access to Medicaid, and Medicaid to 26, we want to make sure that when they're hit with that sea of paperwork that comes their way, when they're doing their enrollment in college, help them be on the lookout for that one piece of paper or that one form that comes through that asks them if they want to enroll in the campus health-based plan, and to just waive that throughout their enrollment, because it could cause confusion. So you just want to be on the lookout for that. For those that are not as familiar with Medicaid to 26, I would direct you to check out the resources available on the website of one of our partner organizations, which is the Schuyler Center for Analysis and Advocacy, or SCAA, which we can provide to you following this presentation. They have a number of resources on their website about Medicaid to 26. And we want to make sure that you are aware of that as a resource available to all of you in supporting your conversations with young people. For those students that left care before age 18, there's a couple of different options. There's certainly, Medicaid if they're eligible. There's Child Health Plus if they're young enough, they meet the age, the threshold cutoff. There's, of course, New York State Health Exchange. And so there's a couple of different options there, and it's a little bit more complicated. I also want to discuss geography with all of you, which you'll see over on the right side of the screen. And so what this simply means is just have the conversation with your young person. If you're a child welfare staff, if you're in the position to have that conversation with them before they go off to college. If you are a higher ed professional, please be aware that this could be confusing for our young people. For those that are, for example, if we have a young person living in Buffalo who's going to school in Buffalo, it's really simple. They don't really have to make changes. They can continue going to all their same doctors and health professionals. If they are, however, from Buffalo and they're moving over to, let's say, SUNY Albany, that's where you need to have the discussion with them to say, do you want to still go to your health professionals that were in the Buffalo area and just know that you'd have to go all the way back home to go see your healthcare professionals? Or do you want to set up a new network of healthcare professionals in Albany, which may involve doing a change there on that side? So I'm gonna just, remind you to make sure that you work through this, what I'll say is the education part of this conversation. Talk about the current plan that your young person is on, what its strengths and its limitations are, and if you need to make a change or if you don't need to make a change, if everything's all right with that. We can go on to the next slide, Jess, the resources slide. So our colleges and universities today are really resource rich. And what is important to keep in mind is that may not always be apparent to the young person that is coming into college for the first time. and is, experiencing a lot of new things, a new social life, a new set of coursework, all of that. And so what we want to put out here for all of you is just a couple of resources to be aware of. My colleague Sonia just spoke about a lot of great resources that are available in the New York City area. We have over here on the left 2 resources up at the top, On Point for College and Say Yes to Education, that are available in some upstate communities. And so Say Yes to Education is in the Syracuse area, as well as the Buffalo area. On Point for College, I know, is in the Syracuse and Ithaca area. These are organizations that have been around for a while, helping to support young people in making sure that they're set up financially and with a social support system when they're going off to college. Of course, there are other community-based resources depending on the community where the young person is going to college or university, and we've listed a couple of them here to help them understand what sort of public assistance and public resources may be available to them based on their individual situation. Single Stop is a really good resource for that, and I know is available at CUNY and is also available as a resource for anyone to just learn more about the public assistance resources. And then last but not least, just don't forget about the tremendous amount of campus resources that are available. We heard from Nick earlier, who's just so impressive and who, arrived on campus with a lot of energy and started up this amazing student group for young people in foster care at SUNY Albany. That level of support may or may not be available at various colleges and universities when it comes to social support, but there are a lot of academic resources on various campuses, and your young people the best. So if Johnny is coming into college and is very strong in math and science but needs some assistance in writing, for example, and will probably get frustrated if he has a lot of writing intensive courses, try to take a look and do the web research, find if there are any resource guides or any particular websites that your young people can access that tell them more about resources that are available, connect them to adults on campus that can be looking out for, again, any sort of academic barriers that they may encounter and how they can be supported, whether it's through library resources, and other on-campus services that career office they can be in at day one, taking a look at what they may be able to do after college. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jess.
Thank you, Kathleen. So now we are going to discuss a couple of campus policies that I think are important to know for students, but also for you all as advocates and the people that help students get into and progress through college. So a couple of the policies that I really wanted to highlight today are policies around course and credit accumulation and things that really help students maintain their status as students in college. First, I wanted to highlight the add drop period. Add drop period is a time frame when students are allowed to change their courses or classes without any financial penalty. Most schools have an add drop period that goes on for several weeks prior to classes starting, up until maybe a week or two until after classes have begun. During the add drop period, it will move from 100% reimbursement of the tuition for that class down to about 25% of reimbursement for the tuition paid for that class. This is critical for students to know because if they drop their classes after the add drop period where they are fully reimbursed, it will impact their financial aid and will eat into the financial aid that they're getting. And so we really encourage you all to talk with students before they leave to school for their first semester to just ensure that the classes that they're enrolled in are the correct classes for their planned course of study. The next thing that I want to highlight are the grade incomplete. Students are allowed to request an incomplete grade for classes that they have progressed in academically. They need to put this request in with the instructor, and then the instructor will give a student an incomplete. Typically, the instructor will require a student to be progressing satisfactorily in the class. However, incomplete can be used when there are emergency situations that often come up, things like a death in the family, or a student's housing situation change, or anything else. The incomplete will allow the student additional time to complete the coursework and get a traditional letter grade. During the time that the student has the incomplete grade will not impact their GPA. Another option that students have and should know about is withdrawals. So students can officially withdraw from a class with a grade of W between typically the 3rd week of classes and the 10th week of classes. So typically maybe a student is taking a class like organic chemistry, and they realize that along with the demands of their other classes and maybe their general schedule is just a bit too much, and they are not progressing satisfactorily in the class, they can request to take a grade of withdrawal from the class. This will not impact the student's GPA. However, the student would have fully paid for the class, and this could potentially impact their financial aid. The last thing I want to highlight is credit, no credit. Typically, all colleges have a credit, no credit option in place. The number of credit, no credit classes that you can take varies by colleges, so you should really check with the college that a student is going to. But a credit, no credit allows students to convert traditional letter grades of A, B, C, D, or F into a credit for grades between A and C, or to a no credit for D's and F. Typically, again, colleges will allow a limited number of these during a student's entire course of study, and utilizing this option will not impact the student's cumulative GPA. It's important to note that during this pandemic, many schools opted for a full-on credit, no credit policy for all courses that students were enrolled in. So this allows students to decide after they finish their semester this year to determine whether or not they felt like they wanted to take a credit, no credit. Again, this is a great option for students that are critically watching their GPA and maybe have scholarships or other things that are based on cumulative GPA that they need to maintain, such in New York City would be like a Peter Verlone scholarship, which requires you to maintain like a 3.0 GPA. And if you don't want your grade to impact for one class, you can opt for a credit, no credit. And so these policies are really important because they're often not publicized by campuses, but students need to understand that they are tools that can really help them maintain in their college. The next piece I wanted to highlight are financial aid retention tips. So this is extremely important, and I'm just going to talk about this briefly, but I do think it's critical that everyone do some additional research based upon the financial aid award types that your student has access to. So first, I would say you need to understand all types of financial aid. Each financial aid a student receives will have different guidelines and that students need to follow in order to maintain their awards each semester and throughout their collegiate careers. These will include things like reapplying for financial aid each year, meeting grade requirements, and credit accumulation or progression. Students will typically be required to meet what's called satisfactory academic progress, or SAP. Federal and state aids have different requirements for satisfactory academic progress, but they typically include things like the pace of progression. So that's a minimum number of credit accumulations students must accrue for each semester in each college year. And so typically they range from 12 to 15 students per semester to 24 to 30 credits per year. Additional things such as a minimum or maximum time frame applies, which says students are only allowed to access this award type for a certain amount of time frame. So for 4-year degrees, for TAP and Pell, generally you are allowed 4 years to access TAP and Pell. It's important to note for state award sources, so for state financial aid sources, such as the Tuition Assistance Program, TAP, or the Excelsior Scholarship, students must be enrolled full-time, and there may be additional requirements. I do want to highlight and note that students that are enrolled in opportunity programs such as SEEK or College Discovery at CUNY, or the opportunity programs at SUNY, or the higher education opportunity programs at private institutions in New York State are typically allowed a 5th year of TAP award. Students with disabilities may also have additional time. The last thing I want to highlight is financial aid loss or appeal. For students that are not meeting satisfactory academic progress, meaning they're not getting the number of credits that they're supposed to complete, or they may be withdrawing classes too late, they may lose their financial aid. And if a student loses their federal financial aid, whether it's their Pell Grant or their TAP grant, they should note that they can actually appeal the loss of financial aid. Again, this is something that's not highlighted, but most schools will have a form that students can complete to appeal the loss of financial aid, where they can share their story of what impacted their financial aid. And then the campus will have a SAP board typically that will make the decisions. Simply completing the financial aid appeal process does not mean or guarantee that a student will win their case, but we really encourage students to go through this process if losing their financial aid is a problem. So those are the things that we wanted to highlight to really help students maintain their status as college students and hopefully progress to higher education. Now we are at the end of our presentation, so we are going to move on to a brief webinar evaluation and read any questions that came up. And so while we ask and answer the questions that you all asked, we will also prompt an online evaluation form that will pop up on your screen. There are 3 simple questions. The first one is, please rate your satisfaction with the webinar today. The second one is, how likely are you to access the College Resource Success Guide in the future? And the last question is, will you share information about the resource guide with your colleagues, staff, and partners? So we ask that you complete these questions and hit submit. And Maria, I am going to invite you to read the questions that we have had asked.
Great. So we had several questions from folks. The first one is, if a foster youth is attending college outside New York State and if they have a difficult semester, are there any resources for financial assistance while they improve their grades?
That's a great question, and I would say it really depends on a number of factors. Financial aid appeal loss is pretty universal, so every student at every college across this country, regardless of the state, should have the ability to appeal their loss in financial aid. I would say that if they do lose their scholarships or financial aid and are unable to maintain in class, other things that they could potentially do is enroll in a community-based university in their city or county of origin to continue to take classes, which tend to be cheaper than out-of-state classes because they will not be subject to out-of-state tuition fees. But typically most of the financial aid and scholarships do require students to meet a certain academic progress. Next question.
The next question is supportive housing available in New York City?
That is a great question, and I know that there are supportive housing programs. I can make sure that we place in the follow-up FAQ document some links to the supportive housing programs in New York City specifically. Next question.
The next question is, are all of your resources available to all counties within New York State?
Great question. And so as mentioned earlier, unfortunately, it's not an equal place. We haven't gotten to the place where we are providing equitable opportunities for all foster youth. And so there are a lot of resources that exist and are available to students that originate from New York City specifically, as Sonia went over. But the resources that are available to students across the state are generally things like the state-based financial aid, the Foster Youth College Success Initiative, the Educational Training Voucher, and some of the programs or smaller scholarships through places like Say Yes to Education or On Point for College. But if you visit the guide is broken down in New York State resources and then New York specific resources. Any additional questions? So I want to remind everyone to please complete the poll on your slide. If there are no additional questions, I'd really just request all of your assistance. We really appreciate your help in promoting the guide and sharing with your friends, families, and colleagues so that we can ensure that the guide reaches its intended audience. And so we have made flyers that you all can utilize in your websites or your email listservs. We gladly accept referrals. from anyone that wants to have a webinar or wants to share their resources, you can email fysa@children'saidnyc.org to request information about the guide book and get on their listserv. Lastly, as mentioned, this is webinar 3 of a series of 5, so we encourage you to participate or share information about the other webinars. Our next webinar coming up is next week on the 14th, and it's maximizing financial aid for foster youth. And the last webinar is guide navigation for higher education staff, where we'll highlight 3 best practices of campuses that are really going above and beyond for foster youth. For any questions that were not answered live, they will be answered in written form and posted on the guided website after this webinar. So I want to thank everyone for attending today's presentation, and especially thank our wonderful panelists for sharing their stories and highlighting the important and crucial tools that are available to support foster youth for attending college. Have a great day.